our love has grown, 'cause it grows stronger.
In the summer of 2018, America's Got Talent welcomed another hopeful to its stage, a teenage girl named Courtney Hadwin, whose unassuming presence did little to excite the crowd. With her timid voice and visibly nervous demeanor, she barely looked up as the judges tried to engage her in conversation. Her answers were short, awkward, and uncertain. For a show that thrives on confidence and charisma, Courtney's introduction felt almost like a setup for failure. But then came the moment that changed everything. As the opening riff of Otis Redding's Hard to Handle blasted through the speakers, Courtney exploded into life. Gone was the nervous girl who could barely speak. In her place stood a performer so electrifying, so completely transformed, that the audience surged to their feet in disbelief. Her voice was raw, gritty, and bursting with the spirit of rock and roll. Her movements, wild and unpredictable, echoed the swagger of Janis Joplin and James Brown. Simon Cowell's jaw dropped as he compared her to the late Joplin herself. And without hesitation, Judge Howie Mandel slammed the golden buzzer, sending Courtney straight to the live shows in one of the most viral moments in the show's history. That single performance stunned not only the judges, but also millions watching online, racking up tens of millions of views within days. It was a kind of cultural detonation rarely seen in televised talent shows. A quiet girl turning into a musical hurricane in under 2 minutes. And yet, for Courtney Hadwin, this was only the beginning. What the world had just witnessed wasn't an act. It was the first glimpse into a complicated, misunderstood, and ultimately unstoppable artist who had far more to reveal. Long before the stage lights and standing ovations, Courtney Hadwin was just another schoolgirl navigating the quiet town of Hordern in County Durham, England. Born on July 6, 2004, to Paul and Anne-Marie Hadwin, Courtney's childhood was marked not by showbiz dreams, but by modest beginnings. She grew up alongside her younger sister Melissa and brother Paul, attending Heselden Primary School and later the Academy at Shotton Hall. Her life took a turn the moment she saw Connie Talbot perform on the very first season of Britain's Got Talent, a performance that sparked something deep inside her. Inspired by the purity and emotion of Talbot's voice, Courtney realized that she, too, wanted to move people through music. But there was one problem. Singing lessons cost money, and her family couldn't easily afford them. Refusing to let that stop her, Courtney made a bold decision. She began busking. With nothing but a small speaker and an oversized dream, she took to the streets, performing for strangers in town squares and markets, earning just enough to invest in her voice. She was often spotted lugging her gear from place to place, not for fame or followers, but for the chance to be better, to be heard. This wasn't a story of industry connections or overnight discovery. It was grit, hustle, and self-belief from a girl who barely stood 5 feet tall. From the very beginning, Courtney Hadwin wasn't waiting for opportunity to knock. She was already chasing it down the street, mic in hand, voice ready. Even as a child performer without industry backing, Courtney Hadwin was already working with the intensity of a professional artist. Every note she sang, every show she joined, was a stepping stone carved through sheer determination. After gathering enough from her busking sessions, Courtney enrolled in a mix of vocal and performance institutions that helped sharpen her raw talent into something extraordinary. She trained at the Shotton Hall Theatre School, attended Peanuts masterclasses, studied at Kate Sweeney's School of Music, and refined her vocal power under the guidance of Julie Miles at Vocal Ovation. These weren't prestigious academies for the elite. They were community-run programs that demanded time, patience, and grit. In April 2015, she tested her mettle for the first time in a formal setting, entering a local singing competition in Newcastle. Her performance of Bob Dylan's Make You Feel My Love left the judges floored, earning her a spot in the grand finals. That moment wasn't just a win, it was a message that her voice could hold its own on a bigger stage. By September of that year, her haunting duet of Say Something by A Great Big World and Christina Aguilera began circulating within local circles, stirring whispers that a serious star was emerging from Hordern. In 2016, she won Hartlepool's Performer of the Year and was a finalist in the Beyond the Lights Awards, a local talent showcase that began to draw regional media attention. But Courtney wasn't just about trophies. She was about impact. When she served as the opening act for Sister Sledge at the South Tyneside Festival, she sang before an audience of 18,000 people, commanding the stage like she'd been born on it. Even then, she made time to perform for causes close to her heart, including a fundraising event in Southampton for children with life-limiting conditions. For someone not yet in high school, Courtney had built a resume most adult singers would envy. She wasn't a fluke. She was training for greatness, long before the world ever learned her name. While most teenagers were still figuring out what they wanted to be, Courtney Hadwin was already leaving audiences breathless with the raw intensity of her voice and stage presence. As her confidence grew, so did her stage credits. It wasn't just the festivals or community showcases anymore. Courtney was becoming known as a rock and soul powerhouse in training. Her opening performance for Sister Sledge at the South Tyneside Festival wasn't just another gig. It was a proving ground. In front of a roaring crowd of over 18,000 people, she didn't shrink. She exploded. Her ability to hold a massive crowd with her raspy vocals and electric body language was a sign that she was built for something bigger. And that momentum didn't stop there. She kept contributing her voice to causes that mattered, performing at charity events like the Southampton fundraiser that helped children facing life-threatening illnesses. But perhaps one of her most formative experiences came in 2017 when she stepped into the spotlight once again, this time for The Voice Kids UK. It was a blind audition, and no one could see her when she started belting out Nutbush City Limits by Tina Turner. But they heard her. Every bit of her soulful grit pierced the silence until Coach Danny Jones hit his buzzer and claimed her for his team. That choice led to one of the most memorable battle rounds of the season, where Courtney's rendition of Dancing in the Street stood out even in a trio performance. She eventually advanced to the finals, delivering two show-stopping numbers, James Brown's I Got You, I Feel Good, and the emotionally charged Broadway anthem, and I Am Telling You, I'm Not Going from Dreamgirls. With each performance, Courtney wasn't just singing, she was declaring herself. Not just as a contestant, but as a genre-bending performer unafraid to channel soul, rock, funk, and Broadway all in one setlist. While the UK was beginning to recognize her fire, a bigger, unexpected stage was waiting across the Atlantic, and her path was about to take a life-altering detour. Just when it seemed like Courtney Hadwin was on the verge of stardom in the UK, a critical decision steered her story in a completely new direction. Despite her growing fame on The Voice Kids UK, Courtney didn't immediately capitalize on that momentum with more appearances in Britain. Instead, it was a quiet voice behind the scenes, her grandfather, who saw something bigger for her across the ocean. While others might have looked at Britain's Got Talent as the logical next step, he believed Courtney's unique voice and rebellious energy would resonate far more with American audiences. The UK had applauded her talent, yes, but America, with its deep history of soul, rock, and larger-than-life showmanship, might just embrace her completely. It was a gamble. After all, AGT was flooded with thousands of hopefuls, most with years of professional polish and camera-ready personalities. Courtney, still that awkward, anxious teenager, didn't exactly fit the mold. But what she did have was something far rarer: unpredictability. So, in 2018, with a suitcase full of nerves and one shot to make it count, she stepped onto the stage of America's Got Talent Season 13. Nobody in the crowd knew who she was, and most assumed they'd forget her 5 minutes later. But this move, this one brave leap across the Atlantic, wasn't just a change of scenery. It was the turning point. A young girl from a small town in England had just positioned herself in front of millions of new eyes, and she was about to turn doubt into deafening applause. The decision to leave familiar territory behind wasn't just bold. It was career-defining. When Courtney Hadwin stepped onto the America's Got Talent stage in 2018, the air in the room felt heavy with skepticism. Her shoulders slouched. Her eyes darted around nervously. When Judge Melby tried to make conversation, Courtney could barely respond. Her voice was a whisper. Her hands fidgeted. The audience exchanged looks that said it all. This performance would probably be forgettable. But then, the beat dropped. Otis Redding's Hard to Handle erupted through the speakers, and so did Courtney. The quiet teenager morphed into a musical firestorm. Her feet pounded the stage. Her voice growled with soul and swagger. Her hair whipped wildly as she stomped across the floor like a reincarnation of Janis Joplin in teenage form. The transformation was so shocking that the entire theater stood up in stunned admiration. Simon Cowell leaned forward, eyes wide. Judge Howie Mandel couldn't contain himself. He slammed the golden buzzer, sending a rain of confetti over the girl who had entered the stage just minutes earlier like a shadow. It wasn't just a moment, it was a phenomenon. Within 5 months, Courtney's audition racked up over 50 million views on YouTube. Headlines praised her as the season's most unforgettable act. But she didn't stop at the audition. In the quarterfinals, she came back swinging with James Brown's Papa's Got a Brand New Bag, setting the stage ablaze once again. For the semifinals, she turned heads with a wild rendition of Steppenwolf's Born to be Wild. And in the finals, she pushed the energy even higher with Tina Turner's explosive anthem River Deep, Mountain High. Though she didn't land in the top 5 by the end of the season, she still took part in the finale, teaming up with British rock band The Struts for a thunderous performance of Piece of My Heart. And while she didn't walk away with the AGT crown, she walked away with something far more valuable: an international fan base, a record deal, and the kind of viral breakthrough that most artists only dream of. What had started as a gamble had paid off in ways no one could have predicted. But just as Courtney Hadwin's star was rising, whispers began to surface, rumors that threatened to rewrite the story the world thought they knew. Not long after her explosive AGT debut, online critics started digging. Someone unearthed footage of her past performances on The Voice Kids UK, and suddenly Courtney's painfully shy audition demeanor was being questioned. Was it all an act? Could the timid teen, who barely answered the judges, actually be a seasoned performer playing a role? The internet was split. Some accused her of faking vulnerability to gain sympathy. Others went further, suggesting she had been overcoached or manipulated to seem more relatable. The backlash was swift and loud, but so was the defense. Teachers, childhood friends, and even fellow students stepped forward to set the record straight. They painted a picture of a girl who had always been introverted, often anxious in unfamiliar situations, especially when speaking rather than singing. According to them, Courtney's fear of public speaking had been real and long-standing. Even her parents and school staff backed up those claims, noting that while she had always come alive during performances, talking in front of people was another story entirely. Courtney herself addressed the controversy with remarkable grace. In interviews, she clarified that while The Voice Kids had been a valuable experience, it didn't feel like her own. Songs were assigned. Creative control was limited. It was a show where she had to fit a mold. But America's Got Talent? That was different. For the first time, she could choose her songs, her style, her sound. She wasn't told who to be. She got to show who she already was. And that difference, she said, made all the difference. In the end, what could have been a damaging blow to her image only humanized her further. The world saw not just the performer, but the person behind the performance, a teenager wrestling with public perception while still finding her voice. In the months following her viral fame, the music industry wasted no time. Courtney Hadwin, once an overlooked teenager from County Durham, was now the newest signee under Simon Cowell's Psycho Entertainment in partnership with Arista Records. It was a dream scenario for any emerging artist. The backing of a powerful label, the resources to produce and promote music, and the kind of global platform most singers only fantasize about. Her fans waited eagerly. Would she release an album? Would her raw, retro rock energy survive the mainstream music machine? The answer came in the form of the Cover Sessions, her debut EP, released in October 2019. Instead of rushing into pop formulas or overproduced singles, Courtney stayed true to her roots. The EP featured live covers of fan-favorite tracks like Harry Styles' Sign of the Times, Lil Nas X's viral hit Old Town Road, and Lewis Capaldi's emotional ballad, Someone You Loved. It was a deliberate choice, familiar songs, but with Courtney's unmistakable growl and unfiltered delivery. Around the same time, she returned to the AGT stage once more, this time on America's Got Talent, The Champions. But this time, she wasn't just covering someone else's work. She premiered an original song, Pretty Little Thing, a gritty track that showcased her as a songwriter and not just a cover artist. It was a major step, proof that she was more than a viral sensation. Industry critics praised her for taking a slower, more authentic path rather than chasing commercial trends. But behind the scenes, the landscape was shifting. In 2021, Psycho Music shut down its operations, and a label that had helped launch Courtney's post-AGT career dissolved into uncertainty. Her accounts were transferred, her releases paused, and the path forward suddenly looked far less clear. For many artists, this kind of disruption would be a dead end. But for Courtney Hadwin, it became the spark that would ignite her next act, one where she would no longer ask permission to be herself. When Simon Cowell's Psycho label officially shut down in 2021, it marked the end of an era, not just for the music industry, but for Courtney Hadwin. Suddenly, the safety net was gone. The infrastructure, the team, the roadmap, all dissolved. But rather than treat it as a setback, Courtney saw it as liberation. No longer bound by contracts or corporate expectations, she took the reins of her career for the first time. In a quiet yet bold move, she announced that she was officially going independent. "I'll be doing things my way now," she declared on social media, a simple statement that marked a massive turning point in her story. From that moment forward, every decision was hers. The image, the message, the music, it would all come from Courtney herself. And in a world where young artists are often molded into marketable versions of themselves, this kind of autonomy was rare and radical. She began experimenting with her sound, writing songs that reflected her personal struggles and artistic growth. No more label-imposed deadlines. No more song assignments. Just pure expression. It wasn't about chasing charts anymore. It was about telling the truth. For the first time, Courtney was no longer just a performer. She was the director of her own musical identity. With nothing left to lose and everything to gain, she stepped into the next chapter not as a former talent show contestant, but as a fully formed artist ready to prove that she didn't need a big machine to make a big impact. This wasn't a rebrand. This was a rebirth. In 2023, Courtney Hadwin returned, not with a cover, not with a throwback performance, but with something entirely her own. Her first independent single, Breakable, marked a significant evolution in both sound and substance. Co-written with producer Kevin Bowe, the track showcased vulnerability wrapped in strength, a delicate balance between introspection and raw defiance. The song didn't just reintroduce her, it redefined her. No longer the teenage sensation mimicking legends of the past, Courtney was writing her own story now, and she wasn't afraid to bleed on the page. A few months later, she doubled down with That Girl Don't Live Here, a moody, punchy anthem that felt like a statement to the world, and maybe even to her former self. The lyrics, bold and unflinching, hinted at someone shedding expectations and stepping fully into their own skin. Then came Call Me Back, and finally, Monsters, a searing rock single that cut through the noise of modern music with its gritty guitar riffs and brutally honest theme. Monsters wasn't just a song. It was a scream, a cathartic release about the psychological weight of fame, anxiety, and performance pressure. It tackled mental health head-on without ever sounding preachy or polished. And it hit hard. The song charted at number 19 on Billboard's Hard Rock Digital Song Sales chart, officially cementing her place among today's new wave of rock voices. More importantly, it proved that Courtney wasn't just surviving outside the mainstream. She was thriving. Her music wasn't chasing radio trends or algorithms. It was chasing truth. Each track revealed more of the real Courtney Hadwin, an artist who had grown up under the harsh light of public scrutiny, but managed to emerge with her identity intact. She was no longer just the girl who shocked